Welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars with Maggie Lovett. Spoiler alert, today's episode will be covering all of the spoilers for Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian because in today's episode I will be eating my words. Because I love Boba Fett. I know, some of you saw me roll my eyes about Boba Fett at the beginning of Let's Talk About Star Wars. But they did it. By God, they did it. They made me care about Boba Fett. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. Before we get into the main part of the show, I do want to answer a few questions from Twitter. So I will do that now. Alden said, "Hi, Alden here, longtime viewer, first-time tweeter. I'd like to know what kind of Star Wars film or streaming series you'd like Robert Rodriguez to direct and showrun after seeing his work on The Tragedy. Honestly, give him the Boba Fett spinoff. I think that he would probably make me actually genuinely care about Boba Fett, considering he made me care about Boba Fett in this episode. Robert Rodriguez could probably direct anything, but I think that he would really handle Boba Fett's storyline incredibly well. For anybody who has not watched like a TV series that Robert Rodriguez has been in charge of, you should definitely check out From Dusk Till Dawn. I think it's still on Netflix. It was previously on El Rey Network, and I was obsessed with it. It's an incredible series. There's 3 seasons. It ended before I wanted it to be over with, but he does incredible work, and I think that he could really do something special with a Boba Fett series. But honestly, give the man any Star Wars. It's a tragedy that he hasn't touched Star Wars before now, but he gave us something truly fantastic, and I will never be over it. Eli asked, Zam Wessel or Fennec Shand? That's an easy answer. That's Fennec Shand, hands down. Also, when Ochi of Bastoon comes to The Mandalorian, how would you like to see it happen? I have no idea. I think it would be really interesting just because I do like the potential of them tying in the sequel trilogy and The Rise of Skywalker into the larger patchwork, so to speak, of Star Wars through The Mandalorian. So, I mean, it's possible if we get into the Palpatine era a little bit more, but I just don't think that we'll see him in The Mandalorian, but I do know that you love him. Jorge asked, who do you think is the Jedi that might have felt Yodito's presence on Tython? I want it to be Ezra, because I really want Raul to play Ezra. He would be the absolute perfect Ezra Bridger. I also really want Cal Kestis. We know that Cal was looking for more Force-sensitive children like himself who had survived Order 66 and the Purge. And so I think it would be really interesting if it was Cal. I also love that actor, and he's obviously identical to Cal, so it would be kind of perfect. But I'm open. I am more interested in figuring out who saved him. I'm really curious to know which Jedi saved him. I have a lot of theories, but yeah, I'm really hoping that we at least kind of maybe sort of find out if another Jedi was on the other side of Grogu's meditation. I just really would love to know what's going on there. Kamose asked, what did you think about seeing Boba Fett in action post Return of the Jedi on screen compared to the Legends books and comics? What about this week's High Republic announcements, particularly the TV show rumors? I admittedly have never been a fan of Boba Fett. Even with Legends and the comic books, he just seemed overhyped. And I specifically really dislike the Bounty Hunter comics that have been more recent for a variety of reasons, of which you can read articles that I've written about it. It's just not been good. And a lot of people had kind of hyped up this idea of Boba Fett being ultra violent, evil, her bounty hunter, and I just was not here for it. I have always found that the Mandalorians, despite being bounty hunters and despite being killers, live by a moral code of ethics, and a lot of what I was seeing from people who were envisioning this picture of Boba Fett was not jiving with what I was hoping for. So I was really hesitant, and that's why there were so many eye rolls and grimaces coming from me towards the beginning of the season when we saw Boba Fett in that first episode. But I do love Tamora Morrison, so I was willing to give it like a little bit of leeway, and I'm glad that I did, because I really liked what we ultimately got from Boba Fett, and I'm really excited to see what comes with the next 2 episodes. I think that if we have this whole like team up thing, I think it could be really cool. And I think Boba Fett would be a really good presence in Din's life, which I'll get to a little bit later on in the episode. But I'm glad that it deviated from what we had in Legends. As much as I like the expanded universe and I want to see more of that brought into The Mandalorian and the larger franchise as a whole, I'm glad they went a slightly different route with it. As far as the High Republic goes, I actually just got the books, and I'll talk about that later on. I can't actually talk about much, but super into the High Republic. As far as the television show rumor, I'm so on the fence about rumors. I too was fooled this week by the Obi-Wan Kenobi rumor about them filming in Boston, Massachusetts, and I wish I'd used a little bit more critical thinking, because there was so much wrong with that entire press buzz, and I feel kind of silly still, like red cheeks, super embarrassment that I fell for that. So fun fact, you shouldn't always trust the film offices, and you should definitely not trust the film groups that you're in on Facebook, because sometimes they're just as bad as YouTube. We have since now learned that the Obi-Wan Kenobi filming rumors were actually for Boston, England, which is in Lincolnshire and is gorgeous, and not at all Boston, Massachusetts. So I always say take rumors with a grain of salt. I think the High Republic series could be really cool. They think that they have introduced a cast of incredibly awesome characters, and I would love to see more of them. But I just don't know. I do know that Disney is kind of pivoting more towards Disney Plus, just because of how the world is right now for the film industry. So I mean, I wouldn't discount it. I think there's definitely a real potential for that. But with any rumors, take it with a grain of salt. People were dead set and convinced that Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to be filming in Boston, Massachusetts, because Gareth Edwards has a high Regency sci-fi film filming in Boston starting in January, and things just got very, very mismatched. But like a word of advice, when you're looking at these rumors, there was something that came out of one of the directing associations or film associations or something that had Obi-Wan Kenobi with literally Obi-Wan Kenobi series and then a plot description from one of the books. No, that's never going to happen. Star Wars films are notoriously, I mean, technically any film is notoriously using code names so that people can't just like show up on set and be annoying. So like, for instance, Wonder Woman 1984, the working title was Magic Hour. It wasn't Wonder Woman 1984. Or even Wonder Woman. So like, Star Wars isn't going to do the same thing. They're not going to be like, this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It's going to be called something like, I don't know, off the top of my head. If I was picking a name for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I'd call it like The Old Man or something like that. Something innocuous that people aren't going to like instantly recognize, but there's still some like science to it. You can kind of figure out most of the time what code names are. So I mean, as far as the High Republic goes, maybe. I think we're more likely to get a Boba Fett spinoff series than anything else. But that was all the questions that I have from Twitter. Super awesome questions. And now we're going to get into the tragedy. I was right. The Razor Crest is no more. Flashback to a few weeks ago, before the season started, when HasLab released the Razor Crest 23,000 backers ship. I had this feeling, like deep down in my gut, that I just couldn't shake, that the Razor Crest would not be making it through the season. And I was told I was crazy because, I mean, it's the Razor Crest. I mean, they wouldn't just like blow up the Millennium Falcon, but it's the Razor Crest. It is the Honda Civic of the Star Wars universe. And I just felt so suspicious. And then we got the trailer, and the trailer had the Razor Crest clearly damaged, and I was like, that's suspicious. And then, of course, the ship got fixed, and I was like, well, maybe I was wrong. They faked us out. And then the ship got, it got fixed, and Din was happy that his ship was fixed, and I was like, I don't know. I have this idea. And so my big theory was that the child was going to be taken in the season finale. Gideon was going to get Grogu, was going to haul off with Grogu. Din was going to try to pursue him, and the Razor Crest was going to explode, and he was just going to be Criff out of luck. And that was how the season finale was going to end, because I still think we're going to get a cliffhanger. But I was shocked when it happened on Friday. I could not believe that it happened exactly how I had envisioned it happening. And God, they really made it even more impactful, because we had that fake out of the Razor Crest getting damaged and then getting repaired, and we felt like it was safe. I didn't feel like it was safe, but everyone else felt like it was safe. And then there it went. It blew up, and I am still laughing about it, and I'm so sorry for anybody who has watched my live streams this weekend, because I sound like a mad woman laughing every time the Razor Crest is brought up, because I think it's hilarious, because it's just so perfect. And the writing on this show is just phenomenal. And like, as a writer myself, I would have done that to Din, because this entire season has been focused on chipping away at his armor. Bo-Katan definitely put the first cracks in his armor, because she revealed to him that he was a part of the Death Watch cult, and that he was in a cult, and everything that he has been raised to understand has essentially been wrong. And he's been living this lie. And so we see it in the first episode. He does not like this guy back here wearing this armor. And that's probably the first like hairline fracture, because he realizes that people can wear this armor and not be Mandalorians and still do good in the armor. And then he meets Bo, and Bo's like, yo, dude, you're in a cult. Call your dad. And then we start to see, like, he wavers when he says this is the way, and he's definitely attached to the child, and he has this emotional attachment to, like, his foundling, and there's an inner war and an inner conflict, and the Razor Crest is ultimately the last connection he has to how he was raised, because the covert is gone. All the other Mandalorians from his clan are gone. They took off their armor and left. The armor is who knows where. He has the Razor Crest. That is his ship that he's lived in, and he's done his job in, and he's made alterations to over the years with the credits that he earns by being a bounty hunter. And so that is essentially his home, and the home that he's built for himself. And to destroy it after taking the child away from him is just chef kiss. It is perfect. And it's not dissimilar from other tropes in other franchises. For instance, something like Taken, you take the child and then you destroy the home. in a lot of these like action films where something happens to the child, you'll usually see like a car gets blown up so they can't go after them, or an apartment gets shot up, or a house explodes, and it's ultimately like breaking them to like the simplest bare bones part of their person. And you see that when the ship blows up, and Din's reaction, it's just what Pedro is able to do in that armor without seeing his face is just remarkable, because you see all of this and just like the simple moves of his shoulder and like this like movement of his body without, seeing his face. It's truly remarkable, and it needed to happen. I mean, it's a lot like a phoenix rising from the ashes. He finds the ball, which I thought last week when the kid picked up the ball, I thought he was going to turn Grogu over to Ahsoka and leave him, and then he was going to come back to the ship and see like it was missing, or like see it sitting there. And I thought they were going to destroy us last week, but no, they destroyed us this week, and it was beautiful. And I love little things. I love callbacks to the first season, and I love these like little moments and these little objects that have such profound meaning. In a lot of way, it's like the dice from the sequel trilogy. Han Solo's dice, like it's the little tangible physical things that ultimately have like this huge impact. And I loved that Din picked it up, because it's very sentimental, and he has definitely portrayed himself as not being the sentimental type throughout the first season, and now we see that he does obviously have this like extreme attachment to the child, and so losing the child was like a devastation. And then of course the Beskar spear, super glad he found that. Of course that survived the explosion, but it's perfect. I mean, I know that people are really upset because they just dropped $350 on the ship. Now it doesn't exist anymore. But it works, and it's beautiful, and I love that I was right. Because that's just something I would do. I love destroying my characters to the base of their personalities. But moving on from that, and the fact that I was right with this, Robert Rodriguez, love the man. He is by far one of my favorite directors. Huge fan of like the original From Dusk Till Dawn and Desperado and Spy Kids and Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and he's just fantastic. And as soon as this episode started and we had Din laughing, which was like a first, there was this low angle shot of Tython through the window down by Din's leg. And it was supposed to be like, I guess, the child's point of view looking down there. And as soon as that happened, I was like, is this Robert Rodriguez? This is definitely Robert Rodriguez. I recognize this camera style. And then jetpack, which of course is not like the first time we've seen Din using his jetpack. But again, it's just like, it amuses me as a Spy Kids fan. But it wasn't until the fight scene when the boulder rolls down the hill and takes out all of the stormtroopers like bowling pins that I was like, oh yeah, this is Robert Rodriguez. And then of course we had the Desperado jump off the cliff for Fennec Shand, which so excited about that. I know that when the intro started for this episode and we saw Fennec Shand's like scene from last season, I was like, is she alive? Because I was so mad that they killed her, because Ming is amazing and they had really hyped up her participation in the show, and then they killed her off for no good reason. But she wasn't dead. And I'm so happy about that. And I loved that whole scene. I loved Din looking like he had seen a ghost. And again, it's the physical body movement, because you can't see his face, but he definitely looked like he had seen a ghost. And so it just... this TV show, guys, is out of this world. But Boba Fett, when I heard the ship, I thought, oh no, Gideon's here. And then I was like, wait a second, I recognize that hum. And then the Slave One appeared. And I felt like I was watching the prequels. Like my heart just like, whew, I got chills. And I at first was like, oh no, Boba Fett's working for Moff Gideon and he's evil, because that's what everybody has been theorizing. And I was just like, no, I can't deal with this. And he wasn't. He was Tamora Morrison being an absolute goat. I am so happy with how Boba Fett turned out. So happy about how he looked in the armor, and what a badass he was, because it was just fantastic. I will say, didn't deserve the Razor Crest because he leaves it parked with the door open, and I'm just like, what are you doing, boy? But super glad that Boba Fett was able to get his armor and kick some stormtrooper butts. That was just like incredible. Basically, I had no complaints with this entire episode. Can't believe it was only 33 minutes long. Everything about it was incredible. I don't rewatch TV shows. I am notoriously bad with rewatching dramas. I can rewatch comedies. I've watched Parks and Rec and New Girl like probably 10 times each. Super easy to do that. I can't do dramas, but this one, I rewatched it. And that's probably the first time I rewatched an actual Mandalorian episode. So kudos to you, Robert Rodriguez. You killed it, and you made me want to rewatch it. I personally would love Boba Fett and Fennec Shand to adopt Din. I know he's a grown man, but he needs parental figures in his life, and I think that Boba would be a really good influence on him. And honestly, Fennec would be too. I think it's a thing that should happen. But I'm really excited to see what happens in the next 2 episodes, and I'm really excited to see that they get back Grogu, because is there anything worse than seeing a tiny baby in handcuffs? I mean, I know that Grogu is 50 years old, but seeing him in handcuffs broke me. I was much more upset about that than I was the ship, especially since we saw... We don't know exactly why the child got freaked out in that first scene when Din said, "Dank Ferric." Because Din was like clearly not mad at him, but the child reacted like he was mad. And I mentioned last night on the Geeky Waffle live stream that I think that the reason why he flinched the way he did was because he has addressed his trauma from what happened and what he has survived over the last 20 odd years. And so I think that like sudden noise scared the child because he had recently confronted his trauma, and now he is yet again in the hands of his captors and a guinea pig for mad dark science, and it hurts, and I am truly afraid that Gideon's going to really hurt the child, and then I'm gonna cry, because that's just a thing that will happen. But Giancarlo is just like absolutely killing it as Moff Gideon. Can we talk about the Dark Troopers and the fact that we heard Dark Troopers uttered in live action, and the Dark Troopers were quite possibly the most terrifying creatures I have ever seen. And if Din had had his jetpack, he most definitely would have gotten himself shot down out of the sky, and he would be dead, and the Mandalorian would be no more. So good on Boba for telling him to take his jetpack off, because it created the absolute perfect like drama. But yeah, this episode is no hyperbole when I say that it is the best episode out of the entire 2 seasons, and arguably the best Star Wars I've watched since Revenge of the Sith. So, well, Rogue One. Well, some of the best Star Wars, and I really appreciate what they are doing this season, and they're going there. They're taking risks. They're blowing up ships. They are putting children in handcuffs, and it's awesome. And I am so ready for the next 2 episodes, because I have a feeling they're going to destroy us. But yeah, what were your thoughts about this episode? Please put them in the comments. I love responding to all of you when you respond to my videos. And I would just love to hear what were your highlights from this episode, because there were so many. And I've seen largely a very positive response from this episode, despite how like tragic it was. But yeah, let me know. So So we have reached the end of this week's episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars. Like I said last week, I've been very good and I have not purchased anything. I did purchase a few things that are like shirts and jewelry that still haven't come because it's the holidays and the mail is incredibly slow. I did get my digital copies of Jedi High Republic. I have 3 books to read this week. I'm under embargo until December 14th, so you won't be hearing from me until then. But oh my gosh, I read through the first little bit of one of the books, and I have had so much hope in Project Luminous back when they first started dropping hints about it. It's so perfect. And I'm really excited to talk about it in a couple weeks, and I can't wait for everybody to start reading it in the new year because it is truly fantastic. And there's a part of me that will always be bitter about the expanded universe, but I truly think that the High Republic and this interconnectivity that they are working towards can really create something that is better than the expanded universe. So I'm very excited about the potential. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening to me just absolutely free range ramble about this week's Mandalorian episode. I tried to give it a little bit of cohesiveness, but I'm sure I sounded like a mad woman because I am, because this week's episode was just everything I wanted and more, and I cannot wait to see what happens, and I love being completely in the dark about the next 2 episodes. I just can't wait. I cannot wait. And I'm really hoping that we don't get a super dramatic cliffhanger. I said last night on the Geeky Waffle, this is a kid's show. Maybe they won't torture us. We ended on a high note in the first season. So let's hope that we end in a high note in the second season too. But who knows? It's 2020. They could break us and destroy us. And I'm ready for it. And I promise not to laugh maniacally if anything else gets blown up. I can't promise that. Anyways, thank you so much. May the Force be with you.